In 1970, the port city of Bergen, Norway, was quiet, affluent, and exceptionally safe. Violent crime was a rarity, and unidentified bodies were virtually unheard of. That changed on the afternoon of November 29th. Deep in the freezing, remote Isdal Valley, a place locals called Ice Valley, a hiker and his two daughters noticed the smell of burning meat. Squeezed among the boulders, they found the charred body of a woman. Her hands were clenched tight against her chest, in the rigid boxer pose typical of burn victims. The damage to her body was highly specific. Severe burns had charred the front of her torso and completely destroyed her facial features. But her back, resting against the rocks, was entirely untouched by the flames. The area around her looked carefully, almost ceremonially, arranged. Placed around her body were an empty bottle of liqueur, 12 untouched sleeping pills, 2 melted plastic bottles, and the burned remnants of a plastic passport cover. During the autopsy, pathologists found lethal concentrations of phenobarbital and carbon monoxide in her blood. They also found soot in her lungs and a severe, unexplained bruise on the right side of her neck. The evidence pointed to a grim sequence. Someone struck her, poured an accelerant over her clothes, and ignited the fire while she was still breathing. The flames destroyed her face and her fingertips, making immediate physical identification impossible. But investigators would soon discover that this physical destruction was only the first layer of a massive, systematic effort to erase her from existence. When police examined the unburned fragments of her clothing, they found that every single manufacturer label had been meticulously cut away from the fabric. This purge extended to the smallest personal items. The brand name on her hairbrush had been scraped away with a blade. Identifying details on a tube of eczema cream were removed. Even her remaining fingertips showed signs of being intentionally sanded down. 3 days later, investigators located 2 unclaimed suitcases at the Bergen Railway Station. A forensics team lifted a partial fingerprint from the lens of a pair of sunglasses inside. It matched the body in Isdal perfectly. The luggage functioned as a mobile evasion kit. It contained dark wigs, large non-prescription glasses, international transit maps, and large reserves of cash in Belgian, Swiss, British, and German currencies. Ordinary criminals do not take the time to excise tags from shirts or scrape serial numbers off cosmetics. The precise, methodical nature of this material purge pointed directly to a disciplined operation designed to strip a human being of all earthly context. Hidden within the lining of one suitcase was a small black notepad. The first page was covered in columns of cryptic letters and numbers written in blue ink. Norwegian military cryptographers recognized the structure. It was a strict shorthand travelogue. O stood for October, the numbers represented dates, and letters denoted cities. The sequence O22, O28, P translated exactly to October 22nd through the 28th in Paris. The decrypted timeline mapped a frantic path across Western Europe. She checked into mid-range hotels using at least 8 forged passports and fabricated names, operating as Genevieve Lancier in Oslo, Vera Schlosseneck in Paris, and Elizabeth Lienhauer in Bergen. Her behavior in these hotels matched her documentation. She paid exclusively in cash, requested room changes to avoid observation, and spoke a deliberate mix of broken English, German, and Flemish to confuse the staff. These evasion tactics are standard protocols in state-sponsored intelligence. Her entire public-facing persona was a carefully manufactured construct, allowing her to interact with the public while remaining practically invisible. To understand her objective, military investigators cross-referenced her decrypted travelogue with Norwegian geopolitical activity in the autumn of 1970. Her transit dates and cities aligned perfectly with highly classified field trials of the Norwegian military's new Penguin anti-ship missile system. A local fisherman reported seeing a woman matching her description, observing military movements near the coast. As local Bergen police began to uncover the edges of a foreign intelligence network, high-ranking state officials abruptly intervened and shut the active inquiry down. Despite the soot in her lungs, the massive barbiturate overdose, the neck trauma, and the complex espionage paraphernalia, state authorities quickly ruled her death a probable suicide. The case files were immediately classified. In February 1971, she was placed in a zinc-lined coffin, chosen to preserve her remains, and lowered into an unmarked grave at the Mullendal Cemetery. Over 50 years later, she remains a nameless ghost. Her life and death highlight the brutal calculus of state intelligence. Individuals are expendable assets. A government can, when necessary, erase a human being from history entirely.